about that. Now we're going back to that story that we were talking about a little bit earlier. The Competition Commission set to get greater powers in a bid to end anti-competitive business behaviour. The government hoping that legislation currently before Cabinet will help the Commission break up monopolies and allow new entrants to gain a foothold in the economy. eNCA's John Bailey filed this report.
Newly elected ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says changes to South Africa's competition policies are necessary in order to transform the economy. The Competition Commission says at least 70% of the country's economy is dominated by 3 or 4 large companies. Their average market share is between 46 and 67%. Experts say racial economic policies inherited from the apartheid era has created anti-competitive behavior among businesses, which is unfair, unsustainable, immoral and destroying lives.
The most important thing at this stage, at this phase of our economy that competition authorities can help with is bring down barriers to entry. Because the key thing blocking the transformation of the South African economy is the very high entry barriers, a legacy of our past. So we have concentrated markets with monopolies in just about every sector that play a gatekeeping role.
Over the past decade, collusive behavior has been exposed in the banking sector and in the bread, construction, cycling and margarine and edible fats industries. In a bid to end monopolistic behavior and allow new entrants to compete, Cabinet is currently considering legislation that would allow the Competition Commission and the Competition Tribunal to make binding findings.
Where we find problems in a market, the findings, even though we are not investigating anybody, the findings on how to fix the problem will be binding. They will be binding on the private parties involved, but they will be also binding on the government, which I think is very, very important, because sometimes obstacles are in fact caused by government policy. Sometimes they are even caused by government action.
Despite the harsh penalties imposed on guilty parties by the Competition Commission, collusion continues. Punitive measures against companies include paying 10% of annual revenue to the Commission. John Bailey, Pretoria.
South African motorists can expect some relief at the pumps. The price of fuel is expected to go down at the end of the month. The Automobile Association says the price of petrol is set to decrease by at least 41 cents a litre. Diesel will go down by 23 cents and paraffin will be reduced by 26 cents a litre. The AA says the country will need to stay attractive to investors if fuel prices are to remain stable this year. Woolworths' half-year profit was up by 2.5% for the period up until Christmas Eve. The increase is much lower compared to the first half of the year's 6.7% jump. Food sales recorded the fastest increase in South Africa by growing by 9.4%. The country's Australian brand, David Jones, improved sales by 0.6%. The retail chain has faced tough times due to depressed consumer spending in its South African market.